I moved into that apartment on a Tuesday. It was raining. Not the kind of rain that soaks you, just that cold misty drizzle that makes the whole world feel gray and forgotten. Seemed fitting, the place was cheap. Too cheap, but I didn't question it. I was 18, broke, and stubborn. I told myself it was temporary. Just somewhere quiet to focus while I got ready for college. The apartment building sat at the edge of town, away from anything interesting. It used to be some kind of retirement home before they remodeled it, probably why it still smelled like mothballs and bleach. Still, I didn't mind. I had my bed, my books, my second-hand TV, and my old Xbox. I figured I could survive 6 months here, maybe less if I got a job. That first night was uneventful. Just me and the sound of rain tapping on the windows while I unpacked. Around midnight, I booted up the Xbox and started playing Minecraft. Nothing fancy, just a survival world to pass the time that I must have zoned out. You know that weird trance you fall into when you've been gaming too long? That's where I was, until something ran across my screen. It was fast. Just a flicker of motion from left to right, so quick I couldn't make out what it was. I paused. My heart did this weird skip, like a cold hand reached inside and squeezed it once. I stared at the screen. Nothing there. I laughed it off. Probably a glitch. Or maybe I was just tired. I saved the game, powered down, and went to bed. I woke up in a room I didn't recognize. The bed I was lying on was damp. The walls were a sickly shade of yellow-brown, like old wallpaper stained with smoke and rot. Everything smelled like mold and wet wood. I sat up. And that's when I saw her. Standing in the doorway. An old woman. Thin. Gray. Her skin looked like paper, stretched and torn in places. Her eyes were huge and hollow, so dark they didn't reflect any light at all. But the worst part, she was smiling. It wasn't a kind smile. It wasn't even a creepy smile. It was a smile that said, "I've been waiting for you." We just stared at each other. Neither of us moved. I tried to speak, to ask who she was, or where I was, but no sound came out. Then, just like that, I woke up, back in my apartment. Sunlight poured through the windows. Birds were chirping, everything was normal. But my heart was still racing. I told myself it was just a dream. A vivid nightmare. No big deal. I'd had weird dreams before, everybody has. This was no different, right? The day passed like any other. I stayed in. Made some coffee. Watched random YouTube videos. Then I fired up Call of Duty and played for a couple hours. Nothing weird happened. Around 5, I switched over to Skate 3. It was snowing outside now, heavy flakes falling past the window like ash. I sat there, grinding fake rails and landing impossible flips, just killing time. At 6:15, I got up to make dinner. As I walked into the hallway, I saw something move. It darted from the kitchen to the laundry room, fast, low to the ground. I froze. Every hair on my body stood up. I rushed over and flung open the laundry room door. Nothing. The lights were off, the machines were still, just me, and that thick, uncomfortable silence. I checked every corner, every cabinet. No one was there, but it didn't feel empty. It felt. Watched. I ate dinner in the living room. Something basic. I don't even remember what. I threw on Happy Gilmore to distract myself. Figured a dumb comedy would help reset my brain. I laughed a little. Relaxed. Almost forgot about the dream, about the figure in the hallway, until the movie ended, and the apartment was dark. I turned off the TV, picked up the controller, and loaded Minecraft again. Same world. Same bunker I'd been working on. I played for maybe 30 minutes, tunneling, organizing my chest room, doing nothing important, when it happened again. That flicker across the screen, only this time. I knew it wasn't in the game that I paused. Sat there, frozen. And then, it happened again, that a gray shape flashed across the screen, not in the game, but on the screen. Like a shadow caught in the glass. A reflection, something behind me. I whipped around. No one there. I stood up slowly, scanning every inch of the room. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. And then, I turned back to the TV. The screen was black. Xbox off. But in the reflection, there was movement, just behind my shoulder. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner of the room, lights on, back to the wall, waiting for morning. The next morning felt wrong. Not because something happened, but because nothing did. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. The snow outside had stopped, the air was still, and the apartment was silent in a way that didn't feel peaceful. It felt off. I hadn't slept at all, and every little noise, the creak of the old fridge, the whir of the heater, made my skin crawl. I spent most of the day pacing, trying to tell myself I was just tired, that I was being paranoid. But every time I looked at the TV, even when it was off, I felt my stomach turn. It was like it was watching me back. I left it unplugged, just in case. Around mid-afternoon, I forced myself to get out of the apartment. Took a walk. Just needed to breathe. There's a gas station about a mile down the road, so I went there to grab some snacks, maybe talk to a human being for 5 minutes. But even then, something felt weird. The cashier, this guy maybe in his 30s, with a baseball cap and a lazy eye, he looked at me like he recognized me. I'd never seen him before. But when I handed him my card, he asked, "You live in the old Terrace Place building?" I said yeah, and he went quiet for a second before muttering, "That place gives me the creeps, man. My grandma stayed there back when it was still a home. Said she used to hear voices in the vents." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, grabbed my stuff, and walked out. Voices in the vents? Great. Just what I needed. I got back around 5 p.m. It was already getting dark. I made some ramen, sat at the table with my headphones in, and watched some YouTube on my phone, anything to drown out the feeling that something was off. That night, I didn't touch the TV. I didn't even sit on the couch. I stayed in bed, reading with a flashlight like a kid hiding from monsters. And that's when I heard it. A knock. Soft. From inside the wall. At first I thought maybe it was the neighbors, thin walls, old building. But it didn't sound like footsteps or someone moving furniture. It was intentional. Tap. 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 3 knocks. Then silence. I held my breath. Then, 30 seconds later, tap. 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 Same rhythm. Same spot. It was coming from the far corner of the room, near the vent. I got up, slowly, and walked over. I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. Just faint static. Not white noise, it sounded like an old radio left on with no station. I tapped the wall back. Nothing. I waited a minute. Then I heard it again, but this time, behind me. Tap. 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 From the opposite wall. I spun around so fast I knocked over my lamp. The room plunged into darkness. My flashlight flickered. I fumbled to grab it and shined it around the room, my breath shaking. Nothing there. No one. Just me, a broken lamp, and that same smell I remembered from the dream, like mold and something rotting deep beneath the floorboards. I didn't sleep again. I sat up all night, listening to the tapping move from wall to wall, always in threes, never closer, but never gone. It felt like she was testing me. Like she was letting me know she could get in whenever she wanted. She just hadn't decided to why the third day. I was barely functional. My eyes were sunken, my hands shaky, my head filled with this constant pressure like I was going to explode. I stopped eating. I stopped showering. The only thing I could focus on was trying to find out what the hell was happening. I googled everything: haunted apartment, TV reflections, ghost, old woman in dream follows you. Most of it was useless. Creepypasta blogs, Reddit threads filled with people trying to write horror stories. None of it helped. Until I found an old article, buried in some archive, about the building. Apparently, Terrace Place used to be called Winter Pines Assisted Living. It was shut down in the late 90s after a string of unexplained fatalities. 3 elderly residents died in their sleep within the same week. No signs of heart failure, no signs of trauma. Just gone. One nurse was quoted saying, "They all died with the same expression. Smiling, eyes wide open. Like they saw something beautiful, or terrifying." That hit me like a brick. I kept reading. There was a photo, grainy, black and white, of the facility staff in front of the building. I stared at it for a long time. Second row. Left side. There she was. Same face. Same empty eyes. That damn smile. I dropped my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I almost threw up. I ran to the kitchen to splash water on my face, trying to convince myself it was coincidence. A resemblance. Something explainable. But when I looked up into the dark screen of the microwave, I saw her standing behind me. I spun around, heart ready to burst, but no one was there. I backed into the corner, hyperventilating, too afraid to move. Then I heard the static again. From the living room. The Xbox was off. The TV was unplugged. But I could still hear it. I peeked out and saw the screen glowing. Faint. Like something was powering it without a cord. I approached slowly, one hand on the counter to keep from collapsing. The screen showed a hallway. Not a real hallway, it was too dark, too decayed, like somewhere underground. The camera panned slowly, and then stopped on a door marked 306. The number burned into my brain. The image flickered. Then it cut to static. Then black. Then my reflection. But not just mine. Over my left shoulder, clear as day, was a second face. Her face. Inches from mine. I screamed. The screen went dead. Everything was dark. And then, from behind the wall, I heard her voice. Whispered. Not in words, but in something older. Something broken. Like a dying signal. I ran. I didn't care about my keys, my shoes, my pride. I bolted out the door and didn't stop running until I reached the gas station again. The same guy was there. I must have looked like hell because he didn't even ask questions, just let me sit down in the corner with a bottle of water. I told him everything. I didn't care if I sounded crazy. When I finished, he looked at me for a long time and said, "Room 306, that's the basement unit, right?" They sealed that off years ago after a fire. No one's been in there since. I didn't reply. I already knew what I had to do. If I ever wanted this to stop, if I ever wanted to sleep again, I'd have to go down there. Face her. Whatever she was. Whatever she had become. I returned just after midnight. I don't know why I waited so long. Maybe I was hoping morning would come and magically fix everything, or maybe some part of me was hoping I'd imagined it all. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. The apartment building loomed in the dark, taller than it had ever felt, windows like black, watching eyes. I stood outside for a long time, staring up, clutching the flashlight I'd bought from the gas station. I didn't bring anything else. No phone. No weapon. Just the light and the question, what would I find in room 306? The basement door was supposed to be sealed, but it wasn't. The lock was broken, like someone had forced it open recently. The hallway inside was freezing. My breath fogged the air as I descended the narrow stairs, each one creaking under my weight like it hadn't been touched in years. The deeper I went, the worse the smell got. Damp concrete, old rust, and something sweeter, like spoiled meat. The basement stretched in both directions, unlit and lined with rusted pipes. I turned left, following the numbers spray-painted on the walls. 302. 304, and then I saw it. Room 306. The door was metal, painted over many times, the layers now peeling back like old skin. Someone had scrawled something across it in faded chalk, "Don't look at the screen." The moment I reached for the doorknob, the lights flickered once and died completely. My flashlight blinked, but I smacked it, and it came back on, the beam jittery, as if even the batteries were afraid. I opened the door. The room was larger than I expected. It looked like a medical ward, tiled floors, cracked walls, an old hospital bed pushed against the far wall under a broken ceiling vent. Dust blanketed everything in a fine gray sheet. In the center of the room, surrounded by a tangle of black cables, was a TV. The exact same model as mine upstairs. Unplugged. Still glowing. The screen buzzed softly, static dancing like snow in a blizzard. My hands were shaking. My mind screamed to run. But my legs carried me forward. I stepped over the cables, crouched, and stared at the screen. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then the static cleared. And I saw myself. In real time. On the screen, I was kneeling, exactly as I was now. But the room around me looked off. The shadows were deeper. The walls cracked wider. I blinked. My reflection blinked back. But behind me, on the screen, a figure stood in the corner. Slowly, too slowly, she began to move. Not walking. Gliding. Her feet didn't touch the floor. Her body didn't sway. Just a smooth, unnatural motion, closer, and closer, and closer. I turned around. Nothing. I turned back to the screen. She was right behind me now. I could see her face clearly, her mouth stretched impossibly wide, her eyes bulging and blank, a gray tongue flicking between black gums. Her hands reached forward. On screen. And then, I felt them. Cold fingers brushed the back of my neck. I screamed and stumbled backward, slamming into the wall, knocking over the bed. The TV sparked violently, smoke curling from its edges, but it didn't shut off. Her reflection, or her image, stayed on screen. Watching. breathing, smiling. I turned and ran. Through the door. Up the stairs. Out the building. I didn't stop until I was standing in the snow again, gasping, crying, hands scraped and knees raw. I stayed with a friend that night. Didn't go back for days. When I finally worked up the courage, I returned during daylight. The apartment was just as I left it, cold, quiet, and stale. But the TV was gone. Just the empty stand, dust disturbed where it used to sit. I checked the closet, the hallway, the dumpster. Nothing. It had vanished. I thought maybe that meant it was over. Maybe whatever I saw down there, whatever she was, had left. Moved on. Died again. I wanted to believe that. I still do. But last night, just before bed, I opened my laptop. The screen flickered. For a split second, just a blink, it wasn't my desktop. It was a hallway. Old. Decaying. A door marked 306. Then it was gone. I shut the laptop and stared at my reflection. Alone. But not. I could feel it. Her. I don't think she's trapped in that basement. I think she's in the screens. I think she's been watching people for years, waiting for someone to see her. And now that I have, I don't think she's ever going to stop.